What's up, guys? So today I am back with one of my random silly list um, that I just kind of decided to do. I've been wanting to do this one for a little while. And if this video doesn't get that many views, doesn't get that many likes, that's okay with me. I'm sure a lot of you aren't into professional wrestling, all that phony stuff. Um, if it's just not your cup of tea, that's all right. But if you've stumbled on this video and you are a professional wrestling WWE fan, I definitely look forward to your feedback because I have an interesting list, at least from my point of view. Um, you know, look forward to your feedback. What are your top 10? Um, how right am I in some places and how dead wrong am I in other places? Um, so today I am talking about my top 10 WWE wrestlers of all time. So let's get a couple things out of the way. I was born in the mid 90s. Um, so right off the bat, that tells you what era of wrestling I grew up watching as a kid. Um, a little bit of the Attitude Era, mainly the Ruthless Aggression slash PG era of wrestling. So, kind of goes without saying, but wrestlers like Bret Hart, I know Bret Hart is not going to be on this list. Um, Feel free to tell me how wrong I am. That's my first point, and boy, are we getting there. Randy Savage is not going to be on this list. I understand that these are some of the greatest people to ever do it objectively, but for me, I never grew up watching their matches, so it just doesn't feel, um, even though they're, like I said, they're great wrestlers, and definitely have left their own legacy. But for me, I didn't grow up watching them, so they just don't feel as special. Um, so you can kind of get a hint of um, people that are going to be on this list. Um, I would I would highly suggest you critiquing me on that as opposed to, like I said, right off the bat, people like you know Bret Hart, um, you know Ricky Steamboat, um, Hulk Hogan, Mr. Perfect. Like, these people are not going to be on my list because they're just before my time. Um, Sorry. Um, so, a couple honorable mentions. Um, JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield. Um, Not necessarily like there's a reason he's not on this list, but I had to at least mention him, and here's why. Um, he worked really well as a heel. He worked really well with just his rich character, kind of talking down to everyone. He's a rich guy from Texas, and he like has great stock in Wall Street or something. I don't exactly remember his character, but definitely as a champion, as a WWE champion, he definitely shined. Is That's where he really his real character kind of kind of came through, and he was very easy to hate as a champion, and it was cool just growing up with him and just watching him work. But one of the things that I cannot go without saying, and I know that this is top 10 wrestlers, but I have to give a nod to his commentary work. Um, with Michael Cole on SmackDown, he was a great heel commentator. He brought logic to being a heel and to being a villain and to using underhand tactics to win matches and things like that. he was just very logical about it, and and he definitely had that. I've been a champion before, so I know what it's like to be champion. He really brought that into his commentary, and of course, Michael Cole was a really great kind of person to bounce off that. So that commentary team to me has always been real special. Obviously, there's Jr. and um, Jerry Lawler. That's like everyone's favorite commentary team, and they're really good too. Probably better. But yeah, JBL as a commentator every week on SmackDown with Michael Cole was awesome growing up. Um, RVD, Rob Van Dam. Just a he once again we're going through the honorable mentions here, but he was just a really fun guy to watch. Um, watch fly around the ring. His rolling thunder move was always real cool. His kicks were super fun to watch. The way he like springboarded from the mat to the top rope, he never really had to go between the second rope and climb the turnbuckle because he just like hopped up there. Um, Great high flyer. The original Mr. Monday Night. Um, yeah, great wrestler. Just real fun to watch. No matter what point in his career that you watched him. Um, CM Punk. So, um, a lot of people are going to remember CM Punk, for the Summer of Punk, for Voice of the Voiceless, for teaming up with Paul Heyman, but I wasn't really watching at that point because I stopped. My first stint to stop watching wrestling came a little after 2010, um, because I just kind of grew out of it, and of course I'm back into it now, but for one reason or another, not really grew out of it, but all SmackDown moved to Sci-Fi, and I didn't have cable growing up, so it was hard to keep up with it. So I just kind of gradually fell out of it. Anyway, I will always remember CM Punk, mostly for being the leader of the Straight Edge Society. Um, just great promos, great heel. He basically just like spoke the truth, and people hated that. Like, he was straight edge, so therefore he was better than you. He didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, he didn't smoke. Um, and yeah, he had a great feud with Jeff Hardy. The whole straight edge versus wild side sort of thing. Um, Also, when he first came into the company, as part of the ECW brand, he was like the best thing on the ECW brand that vaguely resembled what used to be ECW. I mean, a lot of people aren't going to remember CM Punk for that because he's done just so many great things after that. But yeah, at one point he was like the best thing on ECW, and I definitely remember that. And it was that version of Punk was pretty fun to watch. Um, who else do we have? Eddie Guerrero. So, given when I grew up watching wrestling, you figured he should be on my top 10, but he just misses out because and I know this sounds bad, but he died in 2005 or 2006. So, I do have some fond Eddie Guerrero memories, but because he died, I don't have like a ton, but I do remember him, and he did make a pretty powerful impact while he was in WWE. Just really connected with the fans, a great technical wrestler, and everybody loved Eddie Guerrero. He was a great face, just a really great character, and just a really great technical wrestler. And the last honorable mention, I cannot go without mentioning Chris Jericho. Um, a man that's reinvented himself so many times that it's crazy, and you can't go without admiring it. My favorite version of Chris Jericho um, will always be suit wearing Jericho, where he talked down to people and he dressed nicer than you, so therefore he was kind of better than you. Kind of that CM Punk sort of I'm better than you and here's why, that sort of thing. But yeah, Y2J, the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. And if you can make a mid card kind of secondary title seem like a big deal, um, I mean, you're doing something right as a character and as a wrestler. Yeah, greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, period. All right, so number 10, um, Jeff Hardy. Um, as a person that's never really been huge on tag team wrestling, I've always loved the Hardy Boys, my favorite tag team of all time. Um, Sorry guys, I got a highlight sheet over here, so like I'm just kind of looking at it so I don't miss any of these points. I wrote them down, so hopefully I don't forget anything. Um, yeah, favorite high flyer of all time. Um, you know, his it wowed me as a kid. He just had the mindset of like he threw caution to the wind, and anything tall that he could find, he climbed it and jumped off of it. It was awesome to see, especially through the eyes of a kid. It was really cool. Um, his TLC match, the triple threat uh, TLC match at WrestleMania 17, one of my favorite matches of all time. Just bodies flying everywhere. Awesome match. Um, um, and in the same breath as Jericho, great Intercontinental Champion. I mean, just great. Really resonated with the fans. Fans loved him. He was a great face. And he was a pretty good world champion. It didn't um, probably didn't get to shine as much as he should have as a world champion. And it's kind of sad that he didn't get to defend or fight for a world title at WrestleMania, because I feel that fans would have loved that shit, because they were really, when Hardy was in his prime, fans loved him. I mean, they still do now, but we're never going to get in his prime Jeff Hardy again. And he was something special. He was definitely something to behold, and that's why he's number 10 on this list. All right, number 9, Batista, Dave Batista. And man, talk about humble beginnings, because when he started with the company as like Devon's sidekick, like person who would take donations, like he would like bring a donation box down to the ring, is definitely not someone that I or anyone else thought, this guy's really going places. But man, did he really skyrocket in this company in such a short amount of time. And rightfully so. His push is definitely well deserved. His startup in Evolution was great. He was right where he needed to be with Evolution as kind of the enforcer of sorts. And yeah, I mean, even when he turned on Evolution and turned on Triple H, because Triple H slowly but surely didn't see Batista as an equal. And his thumbs down gesture when he is figuring out which champion to face at WrestleMania 21, because he won the Royal Rumble. His thumbs down gesture to Triple H is one of the most iconic moments in Raw history. Broke out as a singles competitor, just like hugely, and that is that's a big part of Evolution in the group he was in. Just he was really handled well, and I like that a lot about Batista. Yeah, his entire 2007 feud with The Undertaker was amazing. One of those matches that like these guys could fight forever and just continue to put on good matches. I mean, their match at WrestleMania 23, which legitimately Batista's gone on record and said that should have main evented WrestleMania 23. Just the chemistry that these two guys had for the entire year. They fought a lot on pay-per-view and, like I said, at WrestleMania, but it never got stale. It never got boring. The feud was always fresh. Just two giant titans at the moment, just continuing to go at it, and it was awesome. And yeah, he is also took part in one of the greatest Hell in a Cell matches of all time against Triple H. A lot of people are going to forget that because he's just had so many other things after this Hell in a Cell match. But yeah, his Hell in a Cell match with Triple H, as Evolution was kind of falling apart. Great Hell in a Cell match. Just amazing. Barbed wire chairs, chains. Just a great match that I recommend anyone go watch it. What Hell in a Cell should be, and it's great, and that's why he's number 9. So, number 8, Randy Orton. Once again, his inclusion in Evolution. Randy was just handled really well as a character, as like this up and coming kid that could learn from everyone else in the group. Just handled really well. But when Randy really came into his own is when he adopted the Legend Killer / Viper character. Randy is best when he's a heel that, you can't turn your back on a snake and, the Viper. Great character work, some great matches. I believe he started this character when he fought The Undertaker at WrestleMania 20, and what a great time to bring out a new character when you're facing The Undertaker, because The Undertaker is going to bring the best out in you, whether in the ring or just building a storyline. You want to talk about some of the best examples of Randy Orton's Legend Killer / Viper character. WrestleMania 25, his build-up with Triple H. I mean, the dude just had no remorse and cared about nothing but getting the WWE Championship, and did everything sick and sadistic along the way. Also at WrestleMania 36, when he faced Edge, another just great sadistic Viper Legend Killer moment. The dude is just awesome at playing this psycho that doesn't care. And he put on some great matches. So I mentioned Batista and his 2007 feud with Undertaker. Well, 1 year later, I believe it was 1 year later, I should check my facts, but I'm pretty sure it was in 2008. His entire feud with John Cena, they feuded and fought a lot on pay-per-view in 2008. And once again, just two guys that had great chemistry, that could do no wrong, that could fight forever, and their feud never really got stale. Iron Man match, Hell in a Cell match, I Quit match, just these two in 2008 really brought the best out of each other, and their feud never really got boring, and that's why he is number 8 on this list. Number 7, John Cena. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this because, John Cena, the face that runs the place, the guy that rarely ever lost. And when he did, his losses didn't really mean much. Seen as the guy for so long, and people were tired of, the same old character, whatever. But when he first got introduced to WWE, it was okay to like John Cena. His Thugonomics, Doctor of Thugonomics rapper character that we first got introduced to was awesome. As a person that's not into hip hop or rap, I loved watching John Cena, just like not only just rap in his promos, but like diss people. He would kind of use rap in multiple ways. It was awesome to see. And one of the main reasons he's on this list is because I grew up with John Cena. Like I remember his very first match in WWE against Kurt Angle. And I just got to watch John Cena grow. And then of course he got really, really popular, and he got traded to Raw, and that's something I still have kind of never forgiven WWE for, because as I said earlier, I never really had cable as a young kid. I just had local channels, so like SmackDown was my show, and John Cena started on SmackDown. He got super popular, so you could like Vince pretty much could have said, "You're becoming too popular. You have to go to Raw." Like it's pretty much what happened, and it really pissed me off. Back in the day, I mean, you could still say that Raw is kind of their flagship show because Raw is 3 hours and all that shit, but like Raw was really like the place where all the main event stars were. I mean, watching SmackDown growing up was still fun, don't get me wrong, but the divide between Raw and SmackDown was really evident in Ruthless Aggression, early to mid 2000s. It was really evident. Yeah, John Cena is one of the best talkers of all time. Just his real natural delivery, his ability to be either silly and serious all in the same breath. He's great on the mic, and despite what some people say, he's just a great wrestler. He puts on good matches with a lot of people. A lot of people don't like his comeback in matches. How he just kind of comes back, and he's the name Super Cena, and he was the face of the company for so long, so no matter how much he got beat down, he would kind of win in the end a lot of matches. But his facial expressions, his his selling of being fatigued, or kind of his glassy-eyed expression when he needed to be, he was just a really good wrestler. He just kind of one of those people with the whole package, no matter if you wanted to admit it or not. And that's why he's number 7 on this list. All right. Number 6 is Edge. So the Edge we know today, it's very easy to forget how much he made a career of ladder matches. How great he was in ladder matches. Part of the great TLC matches in the early 2000s. He was the very first Money in the Bank winner, and people forget that about Edge, because Edge is just the rated R superstar. He's the rock star, and people forget that he started his career putting on excellent ladder matches. But yeah, the reason he's on this list, come on guys, because he's the rated R superstar. Not only am I a big fan of rock and metal, as you guys know, because you're part of my channel, big fan of rock and metal, and I loved his character that he played. His when they stuck him with his real life girlfriend Lita, she in the beginning just really helped with that punk rock edginess that Edge was trying to get across. The ultimate opportunist. His character, he just really portrayed like, I will do whatever I can to stay on top. That's what made him a great heel. I mean, he married the boss to get, world title shots and to stay on top once he got the world title. And it was just really, really great to watch in the Ruthless Aggression / PG era. Edge was great to watch. Yeah. Um, Edge, like, as a wrestler, could just really just hang with the best of them. Um, he's only main evented WrestleMania twice, but both times they have been well deserved. WrestleMania 24 against The Undertaker. Um, I mean, anyone that fought The Undertaker, especially while the streak was still alive, was awesome, and Edge was no exception. His match and his build up with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 24 was awesome. And then, of course, this year, WrestleMania 37, his triple threat match against Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. Awesome match, awesome build. Definitely main event WrestleMania worthy. All right, number 5, The Rock. The greatest talker of all time. The like period, end of story, of all time. The greatest mic worker. He worked a crowd like nobody else. Charisma like crazy, like one of the most charismatic men probably of all time. uh, and that's just in the history of the world. It's probably true. um, yeah. Just a star of the Attitude Era. This list so far has consisted of a certain group of people from a certain time period, but The Rock just really kind of breaks that trend, because we're talking about the Attitude Era now, late 90s, early 2000s. And he's one of the reasons why I'm so glad that I was able to catch snippets of the Attitude Era growing up, even though the Attitude Era was kind of fading away by the time I watched as a kid. But I'm so glad that I was able to catch him in the Attitude Era in his prime. Why else do I have him here? Yeah, I mean, when he comes back, when he decided to make his comeback, and he had great matches and great promos and great builds with Cena and things like that. And if he wants to come back, that's cool. But I will always remember Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as one of the greatest one of the greatest stars of the Attitude Era, and that was The Rock in his prime. Period. End of story. Now I'm going to flip over my list, so if you guys would just hang on with me, I'm going to do a really rough transition here. All right. Thanks, guys, for sticking with me. Number 4, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And speaking of being happy that I remember some of the Attitude Era growing up, the greatest thing of the Attitude Era, I mean, he defined the word attitude. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Him and The Rock just were that, in that time period, were just the peak of wrestling. I mean, there's a reason why The Rock and Stone Cold fought each other 3 times at WrestleMania, and it never got dull. It never got boring. No one ever said, "Oh, The Rock and Stone Cold at WrestleMania again." Like, no one ever said that, because they had great chemistry. Just 2 of the generation's biggest stars just going at it, and it was awesome. Picking between The Rock and Stone Cold, especially in their prime, it's basically a coin flip. It's just a coin toss. Like, asking a wrestling fan to pick between The Rock and Stone Cold is like asking a Metallica fan to pick between Fade to Black and one. You may have an opinion on one or the other, but neither one of them is really wrong. And even if you disagreed with me, I'm not going to hate you for it, because just like those two Metallica songs are great, these two wrestlers are great, and they're just there's no denying that. I mean, there's a reason why people love them, and I think that's a great comparison. But the reason why Austin is just above The Rock in my list, because Austin retired and he stayed retired. He retired at WrestleMania 19. He retired at WrestleMania 19, and justifiably to The Rock. He put The Rock over in his last match, and he never came back. As far as match-wise goes, he's done some other things storyline-wise with WWE, but he retired at WrestleMania 19 and stayed away. And I will always have those Stone Cold memories. I think if he, I'm not saying that The Rock's return isn't great, but Stone Cold, he kind of left the memories alone and just kind of let his legacy speak for himself, because he knew he didn't need to come back. And he had a great career, and that was that. And I really, really respect Steve Austin for that. And because of that, I will always have great Stone Cold memories that I can look back on. He doesn't need to come back. There's no need for it. His rivalry with Vince McMahon obviously can't go unsaid. One of the greatest rivalries, if not the greatest rivalry of all time, between a man and his boss. Probably the reason why WWE is still on the map today, because the whole war with WCW, and this is the feud that really brought everyone over to the WWE side. He feuded with his boss and got away with it, and made for great television. It was awesome. I loved his wrestling style, just his brawling, straight in your face, punches and like boots to the gut, that sort of thing. I just loved his brawling wrestling style. It was awesome. One more point. He was just a common man. He was a redneck, and not everyone's a redneck, but he was just a guy, just a beer drinking guy who stood up to his boss like everyone wishes that they could. And I think one of the reasons why people loved him is because he resonated with a lot of people. He was just, to a certain degree, he was just a common person, just common folk. That's why he's number 4 on this list. Stone Cold Steve Austin. All right, number 3 is HBK Shawn Michaels. Let me look on my notes here, my little highlight sheet. Just a great, pure wrestler. Just knew the business inside and out, and just a great technical, pure wrestler. There's a reason why his name is Mr. WrestleMania, and his nickname is Mr. WrestleMania, and his WrestleMania record isn't that great. He could lose matches, he could lose 20 matches in a row and still be considered a great wrestler, because he told us his matches told stories, and he really knew how to be a great storyteller just in the ring, whether that was cutting a promo or just being a great seller, reacting to things really well, selling fatigue, selling injuries, things like that. He was just a great storyteller in the ring. It was awesome. So, I told you guys when I was born and when I, kind of grew up with wrestling. So I'm going to talk about his post 2000s WrestleMania matches because man, are they good. I mean, other matches with Steve Austin and Bret Hart WrestleMania matches, were great, but like these were the ones that I got to live through. And matches with Kurt Angle and Chris Jericho were great, but I want to put this into perspective. His last four WrestleManias. So we had WrestleMania 23. He main evented against John Cena. WrestleMania 24. He could have / should have main evented WrestleMania 24 retirement match against Ric Flair. Great match. WrestleMania 25. Best match on the card. Best match of the night by far. Should have main evented WrestleMania 25. WrestleMania 26, he main evented against The Undertaker, streak versus career match. And wow. And what a great ending to a great career, because Crown Jewel never happened. Yeah, I'm not the only one. Not the only one to think that. WrestleMania 26, not only was it a great match, but for my money, the greatest hype video in the history of ever. The promo, the video package for Shawn's match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26 is amazing. Gives me chills to this day. The running up that hill video package, video / hype video, amazing. I mean, just shows how much Shawn wanted to beat the streak and was just obsessed and was willing to do anything to get his rematch with The Undertaker. Amazing. That video still gives me chills to this day without fail every single time. Let's see. Yeah, and that's why Shawn Michaels is number 3 on this list. Number 2. Oh gosh. All right, this is a controversial pick, and not a lot of people are going to agree with me, but Triple H. I mean, first of all, let's just talk about the dude's entrance. Sorry guys, move my camera here. Let's talk about the dude's entrance. I mean, just Motorhead the game. The dude spit water into the air, and it looked like the most badass thing on the planet. And that's why Triple H is here for the most part. He was just a badass wrestling character. I mean, he looked like, not only did he look like a badass, but he looked like he could kick your ass. And he was a great wrestler. He was a great character. He was also pretty good on the mic. People don't give him a lot of credit there, but he was a pretty good talker. Even though he buried some people and went over people, won matches when he shouldn't, he still put on great matches with a lot of people, even though he would win in the end and it was kind of predictable at times. He put on great matches with a lot of people, and that's just kind of the end of that. The end of that discussion. What else? Yeah. He had a great finisher. I don't know if people are gonna agree with me, but like just double hooking both arms, jumping up, and just like slamming them down to the mat was awesome to see. It's just one of my favorite finishers of all time, if not my favorite finisher. It just looked really cool, and yeah, Triple H, he's a badass that could kick your ass, and that's why he's number 2 on this list. All right, the greatest wrestler of all time. Even if you don't agree with me, greatest of all time, he's gotta be on your list somewhere. Top 5, top 10, he's gotta be here. Greatest wrestler of all time, The Undertaker. Um, I mean, we're just gonna talk about that intro for a little bit. Um, his entrance theme. Oh my gosh, just like so ominous. First time I saw it, scared me to death as a child. Um, Even though it took him a little bit, he walked a little too slowly to the ring, um, bringing those lights up. Um, that crack of thunder when he would take his hat off and roll his eyes in the back of his head. Evil. I'm a huge fan of horror movies, so um, that's partially why I love The Undertaker. But he was a great, larger than life character that shouldn't have worked, but it did, because like on paper it sounds so weird that he was just like this, like you know z- you know zombie dead man guy, but it worked, and he is one of the most respected people um, in and out of the ring. Um, just really loved what he did, and if you know anything about the Undertaker, just everyone respected him. He had a career a little bit longer than it should have, but he just now he can really ride off into the sunset with his head held high, and a lot of great matches. He had a great match with pretty much everyone on this list. I mean, point blank. Yeah, I mean, it's the truth. Let's see, why else is he on this list? Um, yeah, he was just this larger than life sort of character, and the best wrestling character of all time. Period. End of story. And because he was this big, larger than life character, everyone that he fought, it felt like a big deal because you're facing the Undertaker. Like it was just so awesome watching him growing up. I can rewatch Undertaker matches now, and everything from the intro to the final bell still makes me feel amazing when I watch an Undertaker match. Um, the streak. Um, Only one man could have legitimized something as big as 21-0 at WrestleMania. Um, before the streak ended, WrestleMania came around, and you really wondered who was going to challenge the dead man this year. And it was awesome, because not only did you have the streak, but you had like both title matches, and sometimes they coincided, because when the Undertaker fought for world titles at WrestleMania 23 and 24, just off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, just a great wrestler, a great character, a great overall performer. Um, just amazing. Um, and even Biker Taker, Motorcycle Taker, had his moments. Definitely not as great as the Dead Man, um, because that's who the Undertaker is. He was a dead man. Not as good as that character, but Biker Taker had his moments. Not only was he a little bit better on promos on the mic, but that's who the Undertaker was in real life. Mark Calloway, just a guy from Texas who loved motorcycles, and the fact that he got to play, um, something he was so passionate in real life, got to play that on screen. Um, you know, can't be mad at the dude. Kind of happy for him, actually. Um, oh yeah, and the last and probably biggest reason he's on this list um, was his loyalty to the SmackDown roster. So the Undertaker, um, I want to say he came back and adopted his Dead Man character like WrestleMania 20, and from WrestleMania 20 for like the rest of his career, majority of his career, he stayed on SmackDown, and you could tell it's almost as if he knew that Raw had big enough stars and enough stars that he never really needed to go to Raw. He was kind of a SmackDown loyalist, and I really appreciated that from him. And I just, it really meant a lot to me that he always stayed on SmackDown and had great feuds and great matches with a lot of people. I really, really respected that to him, and I would, tip my cap to him for that, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, that's it. This video is way too long, and now it's coming to an end. But who are your top 10 wrestlers of all time? If you were to rework my list, how would you do it? What parts do you agree with? What parts do you disagree with? If you grew up in the 80s, who's your favorite wrestlers of all time? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.